Welcome to the MasterMIND Club, your ultimate gateway into the world of Bitcoin mining. Whether you're just starting out or looking to scale your operations, our vibrant community of like-minded enthusiasts is here to support you every step of the way. Join us for weekly sessions led by industry pros, where you'll exchange ideas, brainstorm strategies, and stay motivated on your mining journey. From heat management to site optimization, our monthly deep dives cover the technical know-how you need to succeed. And with access to our entire back catalog, you'll never miss a beat. But that's not all. Our members enjoy exclusive one-on-one sessions with veteran miners, plus direct access to special pre-sales and insider opportunities at Bitcoin Mining World. Ready to take your mining to the next level? Join the MasterMIND Club today and secure your spot in the future of Bitcoin mining. Visit bitcoinminingworld.com or scan the QR code now. And now back to the show.
Welcome to MasterMIND. I'm your host, Joel Thomas, and we have an awesome episode that's going to be really fascinating and very useful for you today. We're going to be talking about Bitcoin mining simulators and interactive blockchain learning. And real quick, before I introduce our guest, we have some really great deals happening, as always, over at Scott's Deals on Telegram. So make sure you hit the QR code here if you want to be in on anything cool happening in the Bitcoin mining space. All right, so I'm going to introduce Bryant Nielson. Brian, welcome to MasterMIND. How are you doing today?
I'm doing actually great. It's a pleasure to be here.
And you've done some really amazing things, like you've written a book, you've made all of these incredible investment simulation tools and things like that. So why don't you give us a very quick background about who you are, how you got into Bitcoin and what you've made, and then I'll let you take it away and you can show off some of these really awesome tools that you've made that can help people build, scale, and grow their mining operations.
Well, the biggest, okay, let's start with how I got into Bitcoin and into blockchain. I actually got into Bitcoin and blockchain because I owned a tier one investment bank training company. So for associates and analysts and their clients and people who were working in the derivatives space, primarily in New York. And I had one of my clients, which was Morgan Stanley, who said to me in 2015, they said to me, we hear about this thing about Bitcoin and blockchain. Can you actually prepare a course about it? And of course, outside of just a basic cursory knowledge, I had little or no information on it. But I put together my first course and delivered that first course on Bitcoin and blockchain in January of 2016. So literally 10 years ago is when I first started teaching about it. But while I was in that capital markets training firm, one of the things that I found of highest value was the use of simulators. And so it became very natural for me that when I started moving into the blockchain, into the Bitcoin space, that I also introduce simulators, because it encourages people to actually go through and experience what they need to be doing in an environment where they can make mistakes. That's generally the biggest problem people have is how do you start something or how do you learn something and then fear that if you do it wrong, you're going to make a mistake. And so then you just step away. So I built a lot of simulations. And so today what we're going to do is look at a number of Bitcoin mining simulators that we've created. We're going to start with actually two of them that we created in conjunction with Scott from MasterMIND. And what that's going to first be is, if you can actually share that would be great. These are the simulations, right?
Before that, Bryant, I wanted to show off. I want to mention that you wrote an excellent book on this that everybody should go read. So make sure you check out that. But back to
while we're speaking about the book. So yeah, that was written in it was actually published in June of 2024. So coming up on 2 years ago. I've been going through and updating this. So we're going to have a 2026 edition of this available that will incorporate all of the advancements and changes that the market has actually made in the space. And I hope to have it released in the next probably 2 months, but that's coming out, and it has now a whole new section on standard operating procedures that will help miners actually learn more about how to operate their business and how to run their business professionally. But let's go to the simulators.
1 second. There we go. All right.
There we
Sorry.
go.
Here we go.
All right.
Now it works.
So we're sharing with you the links that you can go to, that you can actually play with this yourself. And of course, these links should be available to you in your in the show notes if you're watching this after we do this live webinar. But this is basically what we're going to be looking at. And what I really wanted to start with is this first one, which is the Bitcoin mining investment feasibility simulator. I was having this discussion with Scott, and Scott and I were talking about, well, how do you go about understanding whether you should be doing this? And how do you understand about what type of investment should you make? Should you be buying Bitcoin, or should you be actually moving into some mining? I mean, or even creating a hybrid situation. So the very first simulator that I built for Scott is this one here, is the Bitcoin mining investment simulator. And this is a very straightforward process. You actually take and you input what you have available for yourself, and it will then walk you through the process of whether or not it's better for you to buy, go into mining, or whether you should just be buying Bitcoin. So you start with these sliders. You can put in how much available capital you have. And again, it goes from 100,000 up to 10 million. So you can start really small. This is just by default sets at $1 million. You can then also include debt that you could be taking on if you were to create your own mining operation. You also then can set and establish what type of ROI that you want to target. And then what is the acceptable payback period? So it goes from 1 year to 5 years. By here, the default is 3 years. And then what you end up doing is then you have to then choose by geography, because geography often defines whether a Bitcoin mine is successful or not. Obviously, if you have the geographic areas, so here we have literally the whole world. So you can have North America, South America, Europe, Asia, Africa, even the Middle East and Oceania. We haven't put in space, anything in space, so we'll have to wait till Elon actually starts making.
It's coming soon.
Yeah, it's coming soon. But you can also then choose what type of climate that you're going to have. So you could choose in North America, and that could be, say, in Minnesota, where it's going to be cold. You could choose then a moderate space, say in Tennessee, or a hot space that might even be dry, say Eastern Texas. And you have the ability to play around with the energy price that you have available to you. So you can move these things back and forth to represent the available space that you are in. And then, of course, because you can choose geographic areas that are outside of, say, North America, you can also include what is the political stability, because that oftentimes can make and define whether a Bitcoin mine is successful or not. Also, whether or not they are regulation friendly. So you can continue to go through these things, and it will just kind of walk you through it. You can choose what the Bitcoin price history is. And as you can see here, we've been seeing a definite decline over the past few weeks in terms of, or even the past month, in terms of our price history, looking at the difficulty level and how it's increasing. And then also looking at the hardware prices and the estimated break-even days. But you can look through these things and then go to a situation where then you can then define what your experience is. So you can have none, which is I will hire all the expertise. I have a basic understanding, which is the default, or I'm an advanced miner, and I might be expanding my operations, or I might be considering a new location for a second facility. You can also then choose whether you're willing to outsource these things. These are basic tabs, but the idea behind this is for you to come up with a framework that you can understand and learn about whether it makes sense for you to be offering or moving into Bitcoin mining. You also have then the ability to manage risk. So you have to say, how tolerant am I going to be for Bitcoin price volatility? The past month shows that it can be incredibly volatile. Since the high in October of 2025, we're looking at almost a 47% reduction or drawdown in the price. In the past month alone, or the past week is like 4 or 5%, and the past month is like 22%. But what we're seeing here is you have to define how willing you are to tolerate that type of volatility. And of course, then you have to deal with things like the tolerance for energy price fluctuations. In an ideal situation, you have the ability to buy a long-term contract, and that gives you a stability price. But in certain regulatory environments, say in Texas, where they have ERCOT, what you find there is that if the power demand of the grid starts to rise due to, say, hot weather and the air conditionings are being turned on, the power grid asks Bitcoin miners to shut down their machines. So you're going to have either that, or you have a situation where you're starting to pay for peak pricing for your energy, even though you have a contract. And of course, then we always have to look at tolerance for regulatory risks. A perfect example of a regulatory risk, in my mind, is the state of New York. Up until just recently, it was very, very friendly. They have a lot of energy in upstate New York. They have a lot of energy available for Bitcoin mining, so that you started to see a lot of people moving some of their mines up there to take advantage of that. But what we've seen now in the past few months is a movement away from that, kind of a negative regulatory risk has been being revealed. And so as a result of that, when you start to make these decisions, you need to actually look at when you look at just these risks, the volatility of pricing, the tolerance of energy fluctuation pricing, as well as the potential for regulatory risks as part of this. But using them, keeping with the default, we're continuing through. Now, here's something else that you have to have as an available option for you. So if you're reliant on the power grid, you become then more dependent on the power grid and the regulatory environment that surrounds it. But you also have other options. So you could actually use solar power, and that could be a sufficient amount to run your Bitcoin mining operation. It would allow for you to remain literally off the grid for that power, and therefore you would be able to not have to be worried about the energy grid or the energy market or policymakers coming to you and saying you need to shut it down. You can generate your own power through natural gas. You can have hydropower. Again, upstate New York was perfect for that, as well as other renewable situations. Scott has told me stories about how he has a client who had tires, and they wanted to burn the tires to create the energy, and they took then that energy and applied it towards Bitcoin mining. And of course, then what is your investment time frame? So you're looking at ROI, you're looking at volatility, you're looking at risks, and then you have to start saying, well, how long am I willing to be in this space? So you have then the ability to identify whether I'm looking at this from a short term, medium term, or long term. And of course, in all of this, the calculations that you make, we all know about Bitcoin halving situations. So 2 years ago, roughly 2 years ago, in April of 2024, we had the last Bitcoin halving, and we're going to be looking about that in 2 years, 2028, for another adjustment. And these adjustments only make sense if you can generate, if the market can generate enough revenue to support the existing Bitcoin mining infrastructure. So you have to be looking at this so that when you're saying, well, if I'm going to be really looking at this from a 5-year time horizon, I need to be able to figure out what is going to possibly happen to me. And of course, then, am I looking at this from a single facility that I might just expand, or am I looking at this from a multiple facility? And what this does is this then gives you the environment where it can give you just a basic, I'm going to say it's almost the back of an envelope type calculation. It's a little bit more sophisticated than that, but this is going to be able to help you understand that if you're really interested in Bitcoin mining, you can use this simulator from Bitcoin Mining World to determine whether or not you should be building a new facility or building a facility at all. You have then the ability to also look at this from a number of different perspectives. You have the investment analysis, you have the risks analysis, and of course, even there you have efficiency metrics, sensitivity analysis, residual values. Over here, you have the metrics, efficiency metrics, sensitivity analysis, and also again, residual value. But you can then look at other investment options, whether it's better to build versus buy. And of course, as we set this simulation up, the defaults, given the current market price, is saying that it's actually better to build than it is to just buy and hold. And of course, here is the sensitivity analysis that it occurs for Bitcoin pricing as it's going forward. You have the ability to save these scenarios, and of course, there are learning education hubs built into this that allows for you to understand both the terminology, understanding the economics and operations. These include detailed guides that you can download. And of course, all of this is available to you from Bitcoin Mining World. You also then have some other basic tools here. We have a profitability calculator that's built into this in terms of saying, like, how am I really looking at this? You have a hardware comparison. So you can compare different miners from different manufacturers to see which one's better for you. So that really is what you're looking at with this first simulation platform. It's the ability for you to actually step back and say, I'm interested in this. I need to understand this better, but I want to make sure that the framework that I take in terms of understanding this can support what the decision is that I'm trying to make. That then gets us to our next simulator. And again, this is for Bitcoin Mining World. And this is the Power Profit Simulator. Now, this one is a little different. This one takes on the perspective of what do you do if you are in a business, and I'll just say welding as an example, and you have access to a power consumption that you have, but you are not utilizing all of it. So in other words, as it says right here, you have idle power capacity. So what do you do about that? How do you go about saying, like, well, Bitcoin mining is not going to be my primary business, but I have this extra capacity. What can I do with that? And if I do that, could I even start up, a Bitcoin mining operation? So here is a very similar tool. This tool is kind of identical in the sense that it allows for you to look at it, though, from a power and infrastructure perspective. I don't want to go through every little step here, but you have a lot of variables that you can then start to put in. You can put in equipment investment calculators in terms of how big of an operation are you wanting to actually build out. It gives you estimated costs. So if you can say, what is the mining equipment that I want to choose? This is what it is. How big of an operation am I looking for? And then it gives you an estimated cost of what would it take to build that out. And again, this entire simulation works on the premise that it is for organizations and companies that may not be thinking, I want to be a Bitcoin miner. What they're thinking is, I have this extra power capacity, and I can take advantage of this and start making more and more money. So that's really what these first two simulation platforms do. And of course, they're available to you literally online, and you can access them as you see fit. And of course, in this particular case, it allows for you to build your business case. What am I trying to do? What's the regulatory environment? What are tax incentives? What's my operational aspect in terms of setting this up? How do I manage risk in terms of what we're doing? There are some people who want to look at the ESG aspect of it. Depending on where your business operates, you might be looking at a situation where there might be social or environmental issues that you're dealing with that may not exist in other areas, but you should be aware of how these things are working. And of course, we try to provide enough resources so that you can actually download these things and understand them. So from that standpoint, then that gets me to one of my favorites. This is our Bitcoin mining calculators. Now, when I first started this, Scott showed me actually a version of this. I didn't know that he had a Bitcoin mining calculator website, and it was very, very clever that he had built it out, but he built it out a couple of years ago. And really what I had been wanting to do when I first started building this out was to build literally state-of-the-art tools. And these state-of-the-art tools needed to be available for an individual to understand what it's like to mine, and actually how do you calculate these things out. So from that standpoint, what we have is we have these calculators. And now there's a number of these professional calculators that we build into this. The first one, of course, is just a sheer profitability calculator. This tells you, you put in what your hash rate is, you put in what your corresponding power consumption is, you can put in what your electrical cost is. By default, it already tells you what the current Bitcoin price is, which is, by the way, 69, which is a little higher than it was a bit earlier today.
We had like 62 yesterday, I think.
Yeah, no, this is all good. It also then defaults to what is the current block reward. This here is then, because you're not just receiving the reward, you're receiving the transaction fees that are a part of it. And I'm going to show you a cool tool that I just recently added to this platform that talks about that. But all of these things are then built into it. You're looking at your network difficulty. If you're not solo mining, you need to put in what your pool fees are, and even as to how you're compensated on the pool fees. And from that standpoint, you can then just click calculate profitability, and it will tell you essentially what you're making here. In this particular case, for a very literally an older machine with a normal power consumption with average say residential pricing costs, you're not really making a lot of money. But this is where like Bitcoin Mining World actually comes in, because they have some amazing machines for you to be looking at. But one of the things that you look at once you are a miner is you have to look at what your hash price calculator is. This particular calculator works again. All of these calculators have the inputs. They're not just saying like, hey, this is a basic calculator. This is, you can put in very, very specific inputs to understand exactly what the impact is going to be for you specifically. You could do this even daily. And again, a lot of these same inputs are all there and available to you. But then you have the ability to create scenarios. So what if Bitcoin prices rises by 15%? How does that impact us? Or what if the difficulty decreases? We've been looking at a situation where Bitcoin mining difficulty has been dropping. And part of it, of course, has been the last few weeks of very, very cold weather. So a lot of power grids have been reaching out to the Bitcoin miners and saying, we need to have you shut your machines down because people need to have heat in their houses. And so this is the only way we can do it. But you can put out all of these things. You can create a scenario where you put in what is the volatility, what is the difficulty change that you're expecting, as well as what could happen if electrical prices rise. And of course, all this does is it allows for you to understand this. And of course, with every one of these calculators, you're looking at information. What is it? How is it calculated? And why is it important to me? The next calculator is just a simple break-even calculator. It's what is my hardware cost? This is really kind of a basic ROI. It has an advanced mode, which you can explore, which of course, as you saw, just opens up more and more variables. But you can then go and say, what is my break-even? And it will give you immediately the calculations based on when is your break even. And in this particular case, if you spent $10,000 and you're paying 7.5 cents for a single machine, an old machine, I mean, you could probably get that machine for much, much less than 10,000, but your break even period at that cost would be never. And you just, again, you're seeing this infinity in terms of how you're going to ever break even with this. But you can play around with this and actually then make that decision. The next one, of course, and these are all on the professional calculator side, and that is what when do you make the decision to turn off your Bitcoin mining machines? You're looking at a situation where you might be having the hash rate has increased, your power consumption pricing has increased. Maybe the pool fees are hitting you a little hard this time, and so is there a way for you to calculate whether or not you should continue operating your Bitcoin mining? And you could do this on a machine level, or you could do this on a facility level. It allows for you then to make decisions as to how to go about where is that break even, how do you look at it, and how can it impact you? Of course, there are some parameters in terms of what are you getting in terms of the cost to mine Bitcoin. So of course, what is the remaining time to actually this? I should make this one where it actually updates automatically. So we're looking at actually 26 months currently. But where we are in terms of pricing, the difficulty, the hash rate, the power consumption, and it allows for you then to see both the electrical cost impact, your monthly projections in terms of it. And again, you have all the abilities to do these things to understand what does it take for you to mine Bitcoin. And again, with just one machine, it might take you 55 years and 5 months from the probability standpoint. Here's an electrical cost calculator. This one's very straightforward. What is the impact to your operations based on electrical pricing? And how long are you operating this? If you're a very small miner, you might not want to operate it 24/7. You might operate it, say, only during the night, because during the day you have family, and the family doesn't want to hear the whine of the fans, and so you might not be mining all the time. But this allows you to actually play around in terms of what is your daily cost, what is your monthly cost, and what is your annual cost. And of course, price bounds is a little bit more difficult to understand. So I'm not going to go into this one. There's information about this. This is built on the Cambridge Bitcoin Electricity Consumption Index methodology, and it allows for you to then go through and figure out what is the impact in terms of how's it going to impact you being in the professional Bitcoin mining space. Excuse me. And of course, then we have risk metrics. What is the risk to us as things change? And again, this might not apply to you, but as with every calculator, there's information about the calculator where you can actually look at it and start to understand what the impact is. And last we have here in the professional tools is the ability to compare miners. You can then put in there the different kind of miners. I think there's 40 miners that you can compare, directly compare them. And it allows for you then to look at what is in this particular example, what is your daily revenue, what's your daily profit, and what is your annual ROI in terms of looking at that. And you can look at it from a number of different things. All of these calculators have a lot of sophistication behind them. It's not just a direct comparison. You provide analysis, and then it gives you some detailed information as to how it works. And that makes up what I refer to as the professional calculators. Now, I'm going to jump over here to the fun calculators for just a second, just to show you some of the fun things that you can do. Most of them are not really relevant to anything, but the magic 8 ball is you just type in a question and it shakes and says, something that's just funny. The calculator, again, I stole this from Scott because I thought that he did a great job of it. And that is if you were using the methane power of a cow, how many cows would it take to actually run your machine? And of course, you have a number of different animals to choose from: cows and sheep and chickens and elephants and horses, even worm farms and fish farms. So you can play around with it, and it's a lot of fun. But here's then another one that you have, and that is HODL versus mine. What do you do? Which is it going to be better for you to do for you individually? You have the ability to play with that. Here is just a halving countdown. what is going to happen when the next halving happens, and how is that going to negatively or positively impact what you're trying to do. And again, it gives you how many days, how many blocks remain, and when is the estimated next halving. Of course, many Bitcoin maximalists in the mining space always think that, I can buy a rig and I can retire on it. Well, this tells you exactly how long it's going to take for you to actually buy that dream private island. And apparently with this hash rate and this power consumption, it's going to take you about 100 years to try to get through it. And you're going to go through 25 halving events. Now, fortunately,
now, why would you want to buy a private island when you could just buy more Bitcoin? I mean, come on.
Well, that is true. Very, very true. And of course, then this last fun one is what is the carbon footprint? This is going to be important. So when you start to speak to, say, a regulator or something like this, I didn't have the ability to put it into the professional calculator space, but here's a really great tool for you to figure out what is the carbon impact for you in the marketplace. And it allows for you then to actually come up with solutions in terms of saying, well, if I'm running these machines, how many trees do I need to plant? And what's it equivalent to? So here in this particular case, it's equivalent to 32 cross-country flights. Those are fun, but now I really want to get you some serious tools here, and these are the charts. These charts are, we spent a lot of time building these things out because this is the information that the Bitcoin miners absolutely have to know. And that is for example, what is the hash rate difficulty? And as you can see, as we go from somewhere around, November of last fall, so basically 2.5 months ago, we've seen a steady decline in terms of the hash rate, and the difficulty is also fallen from a peak down to below. This allows for you to see where you are competitively. It looks at what is the adjustment history. As you can see, the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 adjustments, or even if we go 8 adjustments, only one. I don't know if that really counts because it didn't change anything. But out of the last 8 adjustments, 7 have been 0 or negative. And so this is actually a positive thing because it means that the calculations for Bitcoin proof of work is falling, meaning it should be getting better and better and easier to actually build that block and win that. And of course, as with all the tools, we provide insights. But here's another one. Here's block time. People know that from the very start that Bitcoin blocks are theoretically every 10 minutes. But what we found is that it's really not. Again, so here we have difficulty adjustment. When is the next one happening? So it's going to happen sometime tomorrow. It's estimating that we're estimating that it's going to drop by another 12.83%. But it allows for you then to look at all of these different things from a different standpoint. So here's a scatter plot in terms of how it's worked. You can then look at it from the analytics in terms of understanding more about it, what the signals mean based on the current information. And again, all of this data is updated literally every 5 minutes. So you're getting not quite the latest information, but this is an amazing amount of information that you can get. The next point is hash price and how does it relate to dollars. You can actually also look at it from Bitcoin sats. How does it impact? But the ability to say, this is, the direction that we're seeing, and this is important for you then to understand as to what can happen with your Bitcoin mining. What is the profitability? Again, what we're seeing here is that this is our baseline. We've had now a few, probably 2 months where it's not been as profitable as it has been most recently, or even historically. It's all available for you to look at. And again, insights. We try to provide with these tools all the insights. Here's another one. We're trying to look at a situation where Bitcoin transaction fees in the future are going to have to be greater than they are today, simply because as the next halving happens, the profitability for Bitcoin mining Generally, what we see right now is this: is that when you are able to mine a block, you're making about 300,000. It's been as high as 375,000 when in the peak, and it's even at 70,000. So we're looking at 210, probably 225,000 from the reward standpoint. But as Bitcoin mining becomes more advanced, more mature, and we go through the next halving, that's going to drop. And so what we're looking at is a situation of how do we then look at what is the fees that we're earning? And so what you're seeing here is a chart. And as you just scroll through the chart, you can see that what is the subsidy, which is the reward, and then what is the fees that you're getting. You can see the fees are almost infinitesimal. Here's just a chart that's just available for fees, and it's showing you how much are you really making. And you can see that fees actually are going to have to change if it's going to support the existing mining community. And of course, you can look at it from a ratio standpoint between the two. Mining signals, of course, and insights. And then last but not least is hardware efficiency. And this is the ability to look at your miners from a profitability standpoint. I think I have 35 of the miners that are out there. At what point, given the current hash price, are they viable and profitable? And of course, they're broken down by at least the three major manufacturers. I haven't put in more than that, but that's what we're looking at is the three major mining manufacturers. The other aspect of it is life cycle. How long is a miner actually really good for? And that's going to actually bring us to our next simulation platform in just a second. But there's a performance degradation that happens from when you first buy it. It's at peak, and then the question is at what point in the life cycle is there still value within the machine? And of course, this helps you understand the life cycle. This is the margin index. Again, allows for you to then compare your mining efficiency with your electrical rates and to determine where and when you have a profitable situation. And again, as always, we try to provide insights. But that's this particular simulation. Now, this is really where it gets into a really cool simulation. And again, I create simulations because I want people to be able to go in and figure out what is it like to actually do this. So what I've shown you here with the two BMW simulation platforms is it economically viable? How do you go about using excess capacity, power capacity, in terms of making a decision as to whether you're doing it? That third simulation platform, the calculators, gives you all the calculations that you would want to need. But that still doesn't give you the experience of what do I want to do if I'm going to be a Bitcoin miner? Well, I built this one. This is the Bitcoin mining simulation. You have to go through and you have to then create a scenario that works for you. And so in this particular case, you have the ability to go from 100,000 up to 10 million. I'm just going to choose $1 million as my start. And of course, if you ever get lost in terms of doing this, there's instruction buttons that gives you all the step-by-step things that you need to understand. This one is now you're going to choose your location. And this is a little bit different because it's telling you not only the location, but it's also giving you the size of the location that you're looking at. And of course, you can have your home garage, which is going to have a very high retail electrical cost, to Iceland, where it's at 4 cents, to Texas, again, might be high, might be not, to Kazakhstan, to Quebec. We even threw in a green option here from an energy park, or even a Montana off-grid. It allows you for you to choose what you want. So I'm just going to say Iceland is where my location is going to be for this simulation. Now I have the ability to say, I've chosen my geography. What is really my infrastructure? So again, you could continue with that garage setup, or you could actually start to say, you know what, I'm going to have something with roughly 50 units, or 200 units, or 500 units, 2,000 units, or the eco-friendly facility. It's going to be 400 units, and it gives you the security what is the level of security that's there? What is the cooling effectiveness? What is your expected monthly maintenance and facility setup charges? So even a container farm has the ability for you to be doing this. And so you set up then what you're actually looking for. So I'm just going to say this standard facility for argument's sake to start. Then you get to go and choose what type of miners you have. And so to show that we didn't create any preferences, we created generic miners with generic hash rate, power facilities, and their efficiencies. So you can go in and then say, and we created some artificial pricing here. Again, this is a simulation for you to understand what you're doing. So you could actually then go in and say, well, you know what, I'm going to choose here that I have the capacity for 200, but I'm going to choose 50 right here. And it's going to give me what my total cost is just to buy those miners. And of course, then I get to choose what kind of market am I going to actually be choosing with. I could choose something here. The default is the static low, which means that there's not going to be a lot of difference in prices or hash marks, difficulty changes. We could have then a moderate one, a bullish one, which is then showing an upward trend, or a bearish one, a downward trend. So you have the ability to go in and create a scenario that you might experience or want to experience. And again, why do you do that? Because markets don't always go up. If you look at 2025 as an example, it looked as if, the market for Bitcoin pricing was going to go straight through the roof and continue up to $1 million. I mean, I can't tell you how many articles I read that Bitcoin's going to be at 250, 500, a million, 10 million. It really didn't matter. But that's not real. We saw then starting in October, the decline of that price. And here we are, 3.5 months later, or 2 months later, 2.5 months later, we're looking at a situation where we're down 47%. But anyway, you can pick these things. And so then it gives you a summary, what's your starting capital, what's your total setup costs. So you really don't have a lot of room for running your operation now, because you've spent in terms of your facility. Well, you chose a geographic location, you picked a facility, and then you picked the machines that you needed to buy. So then it says to you, well, what's really next? There is an advanced tab here that you can go into. I would recommend don't doing that, because really what it starts doing, it will just kind of reveal it. You can create multipliers in terms of how things are going to impact it. But for understanding how a simulation works, you can then start. Now, once the simulation starts, what's going to happen is twofold. It's going to start going through 5 years. You're going to, about every 2 seconds, a month progresses, but it's going to go through 5 years, which includes then, of course, a Bitcoin mining halving. And in this particular case, because we spent so much money on the machines and the facility, we had no money, and we immediately went out of business. We ran out of funds. We have a well-maintained efficiency mining hardware. We could improve some of our cash flows, and of course our ROI is horrible because we weren't able to do anything. I'm going to tell you that probably the first 5 or 10 times I actually went through the simulation, I could not go through the entire 5-year period. It really takes a lot of concentration. So you end up going back and you start choosing the same type of things. And I'm going to choose a smaller amount. I think I picked 50. I'm going to choose 20 here. For hardware, my market model, I'm just going to leave, and then I'm going to start my simulation. Oh, it didn't let me restart.
This is harder than a 1980s Nintendo game.
It is. And what's really amazing about it is when you go into this, you have the ability to go through an experience, and you're going to be introduced. We didn't get a chance to even see it happen, but you're going to be introduced with things like dust storms, electrical storms, theft of your equipment, a breakdown in hardware. What do? You have the ability to sell some of your hardware as it starts to age. I mean, there are so many variables that you just can't imagine what you're going to experience. And so if you really, really wanted to understand Bitcoin mining, I would go to this Bitcoin mining simulator and play around with it. And of course, there's a pool mining simulator here too. It allows you to look at the different types of setups that you have, as well as then choosing what type of pool selection process are you going to do. The payout periods, that payout options that you have, including even solo mining, and what is the impact of the various pools that are out there. You have then the ability to use that from a market simulator standpoint. Again, the simulators here, the big two is the Bitcoin mining simulator, very complex, but it will get you absolutely top of mind understanding what it's like to really run a Bitcoin mining facility. And of course, unless you're solo mining, you have to understand how pool mining works. That then kind of then allows for you to do the next simulation. The next simulator is your career simulator, and that helps you to do two things. One is you may want to actually have a career in Bitcoin mining, but you're not understanding what the skill sets are that you need and how do you go about it. So this really allows for you to actually play around with this and understand what you need to do to go through the process of choosing a career and understanding what it's like for those career choices as it relates to it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time there. This one here is a very advanced simulator. This is a Bitcoin mining operations simulator. This allows for you to play the role of like the general manager. You are in charge of the facility. You have to deal with repairs. You have to deal with, again, all of these things are scenario driven. You have the ability to look at these scenarios, and as you can see here, that you have beginner, intermediate, advanced, and expert simulations that are in there, and some of the things that happen. So in this beginner one, you have thermal management and emergency response and hardware protection and HVAC and infrastructure decision points that you have to actually make. And so if you really want to understand how the prior simulation works in terms of understanding of, wow, I want a career in this, and then you go into this very advanced one on the operations simulator of what do I do and what are my choices and how are these choices going to come at me. These don't repeat identically every time you run them. So there's a randomness to it. So you could literally go through this simulation multiple times over and over and over, and it will give you a different scenario based on the criteria, the basic criteria, but it's going to give you a different scenario in terms of understanding what you need to do. And so from that standpoint, that is an experience that you can go through. And the last one I'm going to show you is this infrastructure planner. So we've looked at, I'm just going to kind of recap here. We've looked at whether you should be building or buying Bitcoin, for building a mine or buying a Bitcoin. We've looked at what do you do when you have excess energy, and can I actually now use that excess energy to go into and having this a side business in Bitcoin mining. The third one is I'm gonna just tap over it, is all of the mining charts and calculators. Incredibly deep information that's available. Of course, then we're looking at the Bitcoin mining simulator. I have sat and played a game. You can speed it up or slow it down, where it's taken me almost 2 hours to go through it. When you slow it down to that level, you're starting to see questions and situations and interference from just market changes, so that all of a sudden your facility, as an example, has a local regulatory change, and they want to either have some of the sound muffled or baffled, or what do you do when there's other issues that arise from it. These are incredibly resourceful tools to understand why you should be using this. And of course, in every single one, there's resources that learn to help you. Again, whether you want a career in Bitcoin mining, this is a great way for you to do it. You can choose everything from being a mining repair to an operator to everything that you can imagine as it relates to it. And of course, then here, this one is choosing a scenario that based on operations. So you've looked at it from the standpoint of investment. You've looked at it from the standpoint of building your own. You've looked at it from the standpoint of understanding what you have to be looking at from a metric standpoint on an everyday basis. You're looking at it from what kind of careers that you have. What's it like to actually run a Bitcoin facility in various scenarios? One of the things I failed to mention is that in the Bitcoin mining simulation, you have the ability to sell some of your facilities or buy other people's facilities. And so there's an immense amount of variables that are there. These aren't basic tools. These are very, very advanced tools. And of course, then that brings us to this one. And that is, okay, I have experience. I have an understanding of it. How do I go about and actually build an infrastructure?
By the way, let me just interject real quick. If anybody
Yeah.
has questions for Bryant in a few minutes here after he's covered this, we're going to
Sure.
do a Q&A. So please start putting them in the comment section. I'll let you take it back.
Yeah, and I don't mean to just be going on and on.
This
really,
is amazing. You do this. Keep going.
when I look at this, you know, the thing that I try to take away from it for a person considering this or an organization considering this is that it's not enough. I mean, I wrote the damn book, the Ultimate Bitcoin Mining Guide, and of course we're updating that rather dramatically shortly. But really, what we want to do is this. This is a business, an industry that is not something you can do haphazard. It is something that you have to be highly technical. You have to understand what are all the variables that are happening out there. I mean, I didn't put the variable in, but there's a story in the existing book that talks about the electromagnetic aspect of Bitcoin mining and how in one of the mines that we had created there, we put in a screen and the screens kept shorting out. And what we had to realize is that we had to take them away from the Bitcoin miners because it was creating this interference and just burning out these screens. These are the kinds of things that you don't know until you've kind of experienced it. And these simulators are specifically designed for you to understand them more. And again, organizations like Bitcoin Mining World, the Blockchain Academy, both of these organizations, they work in tandem in terms of understanding and helping people get to the point where they can then operate, build their first mine and then operate their mine. And if they only want to be in the repair section, just doing that. One of the most amazing things is that in these machines, I mean, they're built like tanks, but they still break down. And so you have to really have an understanding that when you go about building these things out, you have to have everything that you need, an understanding or at least awareness of what these things are as part of it. But it is something that the average person can comprehend. It is something that average person can master. And it is something that an average person, you don't have to be a rocket scientist, but just the average person who's dedicated to the Bitcoin mining space and Bitcoin mining as a whole can figure these things out and go out there and build something that's unique. And of course, from this one, again, this is the infrastructure planner. You look at what kind of machines am I going to be doing? Am I going to be looking at just Bitcoin mining? Am I going to throw in some AI training GPUs? Do I have other HPC equipment in there? These are the kinds of things that we're going to be looking at going forward. And of course, you have, so the Bitcoin mining, you can choose that various ASIC models, just tag that. And I'm going to add just arbitrarily 100. I'll add that equipment, but I want to have some AI training GPUs, and I can then look at the NVIDIA tools out there, and I'm going to have 25 of those. What it's doing here is this is telling you, okay, for this equipment, what are your power requirements? Do I have the ability to get power to my facility to run these things? Well, what happens if I choose something that's even more power? I'm going to have some dual purpose equipment, and I'm going to have, let's say, 35, just arbitrary. These are my equipments. This is how much power I need to do. So what is my infrastructure? How many circuits do I need? What is my cost analysis? What is my facility? Do I need to have, what's the density that I'm going to be looking at? What is our estimated upfront costs? What is the potential power impact, as well as then scaling? And again, all of these tabs then have multiple tabs underneath them. Allows for you to then start to look at these things, and or how do you go about scaling this? You know, these are the kinds of equipments and answers and questions that you might have in terms of how do I build and how do I decide whether or not I really want to be in Bitcoin mining. But the important thing you take away from this is you can now look at, say, an existing facility. I'm just going to make one up in, say, South Dakota. Say it's a container facility. You can make a decision and make a determination as to whether or not that facility that you could buy today, as an example, is one that you want to. And what is there excess capacity available from a power standpoint to go out there and say add to that facility, or are we maxed out? You know, that's really part of the things that you're going to be looking at as it relates to these types of questions. And again, all of this is available to you for free, all of these simulation platforms. And of course, Scott has, and you know, BMW, Bitcoin mining world, has a lot of great resources out there. And of course, then the company that I'm associated with, which is the Blockchain Academy, has some great training tools that will help you learn all of these things. So the takeaway that I would make from this is this. This is not something that is difficult. It is not something that is unknown. All of these variables are known. It really just takes the time to learn about them and understand what you're trying to do going forward.
Well, that blew my mind. I mean, I've spent some time on some of these simulators, but I haven't seen half of these, and it's really helped me as somebody looking to scale up their Bitcoin mining operation from a couple of hosted machines into something a little bit more serious. Just gives you something to think about. And you know, here's the question for you. This is kind of a fun one. But have you thought about gamifying some of these simulators? Because that was the vibe I was getting. I remember playing like the Oregon Trail on Apple when I was a kid, and I almost wish there was like a little app-based game where you could go through some of these things, and I could, like, my 10-year-old son would totally play that because he thinks Bitcoin mining is super cool, and like we have the little home hashing, you know, NerdX thing, and you know, it's I don't know, that would be a fun project. Probably not profitable for you, but definitely cool.
One of the things that I did consider for a period of time was to gamify the Bitcoin mining simulator, where we could create a monthly competition and have then the 5 years expire in essentially 30 days. So every month there could be a new competition, and there'd be a leaderboard and everything like that. The problem that I found with it is that it required so much administration, even though essentially it's all automated. It was so much administration that it kind of takes away from the seriousness of what Bitcoin mining is. But you're right, having a gamification does appeal to a great number of people. I have two sons who are older, they're your age. So from that standpoint, you know, they've played games their entire life, and I've been able to see exactly what makes and motivates them. I think that this is something that could be gamified, but again, I'm not sure of the profitability of it. But the key that I'm taking away and what I'm talking about today is the value of simulations in terms of understanding this. The learning curve is sometimes, it feels that it's steep, but it really isn't. It's something that you can learn and master.
Well, before we wrap up, could you maybe talk a little bit about the boot camp?
Sure. The boot camp is really broken down into three different processes. One is and this works in conjunction with my primary firm, which is the Web3 Certification Board. So we worked in conjunction with the Blockchain Academy to create 3 certifications for Bitcoin miners so that they can go out there and say to other organizations, I have this certification, and this certification meets, ISO 17024 accreditation principles, and as a result of that, you can feel confident that if you hire me, that you are hiring somebody who has some experience. So there's 3 programs there. One is called the Miner Plus. That one is very, very specific. It takes you through what it takes to become a Bitcoin miner. Now, you could be your garage miner, or you could be, a small a miner, 50, 100 machines. It doesn't really take you beyond that, but it gives you all then the fundamentals. The second certification is the mining repair. That is we've been working with another organization, and they are helping us in terms of creating the curriculum that aligns with the certifications for mining repair. There's a lot of money to be made in mining repair. A lot of machines are breaking down. A lot of machines need attention. How do you go about deciding whether you should try to fix it in-house, replace a fan or something like that, to actually having the hashboard send out the hashboard to be repaired elsewhere? So we've been working with them. And then the third certification is actually the mining leader. And that is what do you do from an operational standpoint? That certification in specifically is dealing with the standpoint of, I have now gone through a program. I now understand what the impact is going to be, and what do I need to do to actually make a career in this. And so those 3 certifications are all wrapped up into the Bitcoin Mining Bootcamp. You can go there and see more information at will.
And tell us about the website that you're with.
So the websites that I'm with is the W3CB, which is the Web3 Certification Board, and you can go to w3cb.org. That will actually introduce you to the certifications that we actually work on. And we work with a number of different training partners to help individuals who are seeking careers in any of those basis. So we have a Web3 certification, we have fintech certifications, we're working on some new cyber certifications, we have these Bitcoin mining certifications. So from that standpoint, what we're doing is we're trying to help individuals in their careers to understand that there are options available for them as a career, but more importantly, a way for organizations to say, the people I'm hiring have met this basic criteria, and therefore I can feel more comfortable knowing that they have this particular skill set.
Well, Bryant, that's been incredibly informational. Thank you so much, one, for making all of these tools and making them available to the community at large. Two, for coming on here today and taking the time to explain to them, walk through us, and show us all the little ins and outs and help us think and give us some perspective on this, and probably a lot of things that a lot of us haven't thought about. So thank you very much. Is there a final place, anybody who wants to check out your stuff or anything else you want to plug before we sign off?
No, I mean, you can go to Amazon and buy the Bitcoin Mining Handbook. If you buy the digital version, when it gets updated, you will then automatically be able to download the updated version. I would say this, that even the 2024 version of the book is really, really quite useful. The new version is extending it dramatically more useful. And even though we're I don't want to say that we're in a crypto winter, but it has the feel of being a crypto winter. Let's just hope that it's only the same length of time that we're experiencing with the current winter that we have now. I live just outside of DC, and I read that this is the first time in, or the third time in 126 years that there's been more than 14 days below freezing in this area. So let's just hope that for Bitcoin pricing, that's where it will stay, 14 days, maybe 28 days. Let's get through February. But this is going to return. This is not going away. And so for those people who are fearful, I would say, buck up, and this is going to be something that you can still take advantage of and go forward.
It is definitely time to be greedy, in my opinion, and I've been doing that myself. So I want to thank everybody for watching today. Again, Bryant, thank you so much for being so generous with your time and coming here and being a fantastic guest. We'll see you next time here on MasterMIND, and until then, happy mining.
Thank you for joining us in the MasterMIND Club, your ultimate gateway into the world of Bitcoin mining. Whether you're just starting out or looking to scale your operations, our vibrant community of like-minded enthusiasts is here to support you every step of the way. Join us next week where you'll exchange ideas, brainstorm strategies, and stay motivated on your mining journey. Thank you for joining us, and tune in next week.